I gripped the steering wheel tighter and checked the clock on my dashboard. 2:47 in the morning. The green glow hurt my eyes after staring at the dark highway for so long. 12 hours behind the wheel, and I still had another 8 to go before I'd reach Seattle. The trailer behind me carried 40,000 pounds of electronics from Denver. TVs, computers, phones, all the stuff people couldn't live without these days. The load was worth more than I'd make in 2 years, which meant I couldn't afford any screw-ups. Interstate 80 stretched ahead like a black ribbon through Wyoming. Nothing but sagebrush and darkness on both sides. No other trucks in sight. Just me and the hum of the diesel engine. My phone started ringing. The ringtone cut through the cab like a knife. I glanced at the screen mounted on my dash. Dad. I pressed the button on my Bluetooth headset. "Hey, Dad." "Bentley." His voice filled the cab through the speakers. "Where are you right now?" Something in his tone made me sit up straighter. Dad didn't call me during runs unless something was wrong. "I'm on 80 heading west. Why? What's going on?" "I need to know exactly where you are, son." I checked the mile markers flashing past in my headlights. "About 60 miles east of Rock Springs." "Dad, what's this about?" "It's almost 3 in the morning." "I know what time it is." His voice carried that edge I remembered from when I was a kid and had done something dangerous. "You're coming up on a stretch of road I don't like. Need to refresh your memory about some things." "What things?" "The rules, Bentley. The ones I taught you when you started driving long haul." I shifted in my seat. Dad had given me a lot of advice over the years. Most of it made sense. Don't drive tired. Keep your logbook honest. Check your mirrors every few seconds. Basic trucking stuff. But some of his rules were different. Weird, even. I'd figured they came from spending 30 years on the road. Too many lonely nights could mess with anyone's head. "Dad, I remember the rules. Don't worry about me." "Do you?" "Because this stretch between Rock Springs and Green River, it's not like other roads. Things happen out here that don't happen other places." I looked out at the empty highway. Nothing but darkness and my headlight beams cutting through it. "It looks pretty normal to me. That's what makes it dangerous." Dad's voice got quieter, more serious. "Listen to me, Bentley. Rule number 1. Never stop for hitchhikers. Not out here. Not ever." "Dad, I don't pick up hitchhikers anywhere. You taught me that when I was 22. This is different." "How is it different?" Dad went quiet for a long moment. I could hear him breathing through the phone. When he spoke again, his voice sounded older, tired. "I ever tell you about the woman in the white dress?" "No." This was about 15 years ago. July, middle of summer. Hot as hell, and we hadn't seen rain in 2 months. Drought had everything dried up and dying. I kept my eyes on the road, but listened. Dad didn't tell stories often. When he did, they usually had a point. "I was driving this same stretch around 4 in the morning, coming back from a run to Salt Lake. Saw someone on the side of the road about 10 miles west of where you are now. A hitchhiker? A woman, young, maybe 25, wearing a white dress. She was soaked, water dripping off her hair, dress clinging to her like she'd just climbed out of a swimming pool." I frowned. In the middle of a drought? That's what I thought. Didn't make sense. But she was standing there with her thumb out, and she looked like she needed help. So I pulled over. This surprised me. Dad had always been strict about the no hitchhiker rule. "You picked her up?" "I did, and I regretted it the second she got in the cab." "Why?" "She was cold. Not just cool. Cold like she'd been sitting in a freezer. And she smelled like pond water, stagnant and green." I checked my mirrors and moved into the left lane to pass a slower truck. The other driver flashed his running lights in thanks as I pulled back over. "What did she say?" I asked. "Not much at first. Just sat there dripping on my passenger seat. I asked her where she was going, and she pointed west, said she needed to get to Green River. That's only about 20 miles. Right. So I figured I'd drop her off, and that would be that." But about 5 miles down the road, she started talking. Dad paused again. I could hear the engine noise from his end of the call. He was probably sitting in his garage working on one of his old trucks. Retirement hadn't stopped him from tinkering. She said her name was Sarah, said she'd been walking for 3 days. I asked her where she'd been walking from, and she just stared at me with these gray eyes, empty eyes, like looking into a well. Dad, where are you going with this? Then she said something that made my blood freeze. She said, "They're getting closer, Christian. Every night they get a little closer." I felt something cold crawl up my spine. They? I asked her the same thing. She wouldn't answer, just kept staring out the windshield and dripping water on my floor mats. So I drove. Figured I'd get her to Green River and let someone else deal with whatever was wrong with her. But about halfway there, I looked over to ask if she had anyone I could call when we got to town. The passenger seat was empty. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. "What do you mean empty?" "I mean, she was gone, Bentley. Vanished. Like she'd never been there at all. Except the seat was still wet and the cab still smelled like pond water." "That's impossible." That's what I told myself. Figured I'd been driving too long. Hallucinated the whole thing. Except when I got to Green River, I stopped at a diner for coffee. Got to talking with the waitress about my weird night. I didn't want to ask, but I had to. What did she say? She went white as a sheet. Asked me to describe the woman. When I did, she just stared at me. Then she went and got a newspaper from 3 days earlier. Front page had a story about a local girl who'd drowned in the Green River. Car went off the bridge during a flash flood. My mouth felt dry. And? Her name was Sarah, 25 years old. They'd found her body the morning before I picked her up. She'd been dead for 3 days, Bentley. 3 days. I tried to swallow but couldn't. Dad, that's not possible. People don't just... I saw the picture in the paper. Same face, same gray eyes, same white dress they buried her in. There has to be an explanation. I've been looking for one for 15 years. Haven't found it yet. I checked my speedometer. 55 miles per hour. When had I slowed down? I pressed the accelerator and watched the needle climb back to 70. Why are you telling me this now? Because you're driving through her stretch of road. And because things have been getting worse out there lately. Worse how? Other drivers have been reporting strange things. People who shouldn't be there. Cars that disappear. Voices on the CB asking for help from empty highways. My hands felt clammy against the steering wheel. I wiped them one at a time on my jeans. Dad, you're scaring me. Good. Scared keeps you alive out there. Just remember the rule, Bentley. No matter who you see, no matter how much they look like they need help, you do not stop. You keep driving, and you don't look back. Okay, say it. I won't stop for hitchhikers. Not just won't, can't. Promise me. I looked ahead at the dark road stretching toward Rock Springs. Nothing but empty highway and sagebrush. But somehow it felt different now. Like something was watching from the darkness between my headlight beams. I promise, Dad. Good. Now listen carefully. There are 4 more rules you need to remember. Dad's voice went quiet for a second. I could hear the hum of the phone connection and the steady rumble of my engine. The highway stretched ahead, empty and dark except for my headlights cutting through the night. Rule 2, he said. Never stop for other truckers in distress, not out here. I frowned. That went against everything he'd taught me about the road. Truckers helped truckers. That was just how it worked. Dad, that doesn't sound right. What if someone's really in trouble? I know how it sounds, but listen to me. His voice got that same urgent tone. About 12 years ago, I was coming through this same stretch around 4 in the morning. Maybe 10 miles past Rollins, I saw taillights up ahead, hazards blinking, big rig pulled over on the shoulder. I could picture it. Every trucker had been there. You see another driver in trouble, you stop. Check if they need help. Maybe give them a ride to the nearest truck stop. Driver was standing behind his trailer, waving at me. Looked like he was trying to flag me down. So I pulled over about 50 feet behind him and grabbed my flashlight. Dad paused. I heard him take a breath. I got out and started walking toward him. Guy was wearing a baseball cap and a dark jacket. Nothing unusual about that. But as I got closer, something felt wrong. He didn't move. Just stood there with his arm up, like he was frozen mid-wave. My speedometer had dropped to 60 without me noticing. I pressed the gas pedal and brought it back up to 70. I kept walking. Had to be maybe 30 feet away from him. But the closer I got, the further away he looked. Doesn't make sense, I know. But that's what happened. What do you mean further away? I mean, I'd take 10 steps toward him and he'd look like he was 40 feet away instead of 20. Took me a while to figure out what was happening. I thought maybe my eyes were playing tricks on me. Been driving all night, you know. So I kept walking. I checked my mirrors. Nothing but darkness behind me. The yellow lines on the road disappeared under my truck in a steady rhythm. How long did you walk? That's the thing. Had to be close to an hour, maybe more. I kept thinking I'd reach him any minute. He never moved, never called out to me. Just stood there with his arm up, and I kept walking toward him like an idiot. The heater in my cab kicked on, blowing warm air across my legs. Outside, the temperature gauge on my dashboard read 28 degrees. Finally, I stopped and turned around to look back at my truck. Dad's voice got quieter. Bentley, my rig looked like a toy in the distance. Had to be at least 2 miles away, maybe more. 2 miles. That's impossible. I know it's impossible, but that's what I saw. I'd been walking for over an hour, and that driver looked exactly the same distance away as when I started. Maybe further. I tried to picture it. Walking for an hour in the dark, chasing someone who never got closer, looking back and seeing your truck shrunk down to nothing. What did you do? I ran back toward my truck as fast as I could. Took me another hour to reach it, and I was running most of the way. When I got there, I was so winded I could barely climb into the cab. Dad stopped talking for a minute. I could hear him breathing. I looked back toward where that driver had been standing. Nothing there, no truck, no guy with his arm up, just empty highway. Maybe he got picked up by someone else. No, I would have seen headlights, would have heard another truck. And Bentley, there weren't any tire tracks on the shoulder where his rig had been parked. I checked with my flashlight. Nothing. I didn't know what to say to that. The whole thing sounded crazy, but Dad wasn't the type to make stuff up, especially not about something like this. So, Rule 2 is simple. You see a trucker in distress between Rock Springs and Green River, you keep driving. Use your CB to call it in to Highway Patrol if you want. But you don't stop. Okay. Say it. I won't stop for truckers in distress. Good. Rule 3. Dad's voice got even more serious. You stay in your truck no matter what you see outside. No matter what. I was starting to get a bad feeling about where this was going. There's going to be things out there that don't make sense. People where people shouldn't be. Things that want you to get out of your truck. You don't do it. What kind of things? 2 winters ago, I was coming through during a blizzard. Couldn't see more than 20 feet ahead of me. Snow was coming down so hard I had to drop down to 30 miles per hour. This was near Elk Mountain. I knew that area. The wind could get brutal there, especially in winter. Trucks got blown over regularly. I'm creeping along, trying to stay on the road when I see something in my headlights. A woman standing on the shoulder. She was wearing a summer dress, light blue, like something you'd wear to a picnic. In a blizzard? In a blizzard. No coat, no hat, no gloves. Just this thin little dress. She was soaking wet and her hair was plastered to her head. But here's the thing, Bentley. She wasn't shivering. The heater in my cab suddenly felt too warm. I turned it down a notch. I slowed down even more, thinking maybe she'd been in an accident. Maybe her car went off the road, but I didn't see any other vehicles, and she was just standing there in the snow like it was a sunny day. "Did you stop?" "Almost did. Started to pull over, but something made me hesitate. Maybe it was the way she was looking at my truck. She had this expression on her face. Not scared, not cold. More like she was hungry." I checked my mirrors again. Still nothing behind me, but I kept looking anyway. As I got closer, she started walking toward my truck. Not running, not stumbling like someone who was hurt. Just walking with these slow, deliberate steps. And she was smiling. Smiling. Big smile, like she was happy to see me, but her eyes were wrong. They were too dark. Even in my headlights, I couldn't see the whites of her eyes. Dad paused. I could hear him take another breath. She walked right up to my passenger door and started pounding on it. Not knocking, pounding. Like she was trying to break the glass. I could hear her even over the wind in the engine. "What did you do?" I kept driving, slow, but I kept moving. She walked alongside my truck for maybe a quarter mile, pounding on the door the whole time. Then she just stopped. Stopped? Stopped walking. I watched her in my mirror until she disappeared in the snow. Never saw her again. I realized I was gripping the steering wheel tighter than I needed to. Next morning, I stopped at a truck stop in Laramie, got to talking with a highway patrol officer who was having coffee. Mentioned seeing someone on the road during the storm. He got real quiet and asked me to describe her. And turns out they'd found a woman 2 days earlier. Car had slid off the road near Elk Mountain during another storm. She'd been walking for help and froze to death. They found her body about a mile from where I saw her. 2 days earlier? 2 days. She was already dead when I saw her standing in that blizzard. I didn't say anything. Couldn't think of anything to say. Officer showed me her driver's license photo. Same woman. Same light blue dress. He said they'd found her wearing it when she died. The highway ahead looked darker somehow. Like my headlights weren't reaching as far as they should. So, Rule 3. Bentley. You stay in your truck. I don't care what you see out there. I don't care how much it looks like someone needs help. You keep your doors locked and you keep driving. I understand. Say it. I'll stay in my truck no matter what I see outside. Good. Now Rule 4. This one's the most important. I waited. If something starts following you, especially if it looks like a police car, you speed up. You don't stop. You don't pull over. You keep driving until you reach a truck stop or a town with lights and people. Dad, I can't outrun the cops. I'm not talking about real cops. Real cops have markings on their cars, unit numbers, department names, light bars on top. What I'm talking about is different. My mouth felt dry. I reached for my water bottle and took a sip. About 8 years ago, I was coming through here around midnight. Clear night, no traffic. I see headlights in my mirrors maybe half a mile back. Looked like they were gaining on me. Another truck? No, car, dark colored, maybe black. As it got closer, I could see it had a light bar on top. Looked like a police cruiser. But something was off about it. Off how? No markings, completely blank, and the headlights were wrong. Too bright, like they were putting out more light than they should. They hurt to look at in my mirrors. I found myself checking my own mirrors more often. Still nothing back there, but I kept looking. Car pulled up behind me and started flashing its lights. You know, the way cops do when they want you to pull over. But I couldn't see anyone inside it. Windows were too dark. Did you pull over? Started to. Put on my turn signal and began slowing down, but then I heard something on my CB radio. What? Voices. Whispering. Couldn't make out words, but there were definitely voices. Multiple people talking at the same time, all whispering. And the weird thing was, my radio was turned off. I looked at my own CB radio. The power light was off, same as always. I rarely used it anymore. I turned the radio on to see if the voices would get clearer. Soon as I did that, they stopped. Complete silence. But that police car was still behind me, still flashing its lights. So what did you do? I sped up, pushed my truck as fast as it would go. That car stayed right behind me for 40 miles. Never got closer, never fell back. Just maintained the same distance. 40 miles. 40 miles. And the whole time, every few minutes, I'd hear those voices whispering through the radio, even when it was turned off. Dad went quiet for a second. Finally reached the truck stop in Green River. The place was lit up like a Christmas tree, had maybe a dozen other trucks parked there. Soon as I pulled into the lot, that police car disappeared. Disappeared? 1 second it was behind me, next second it was gone. I parked and got out to look around. Nothing. Asked other drivers if they'd seen a police car. Nobody had seen anything. I checked my mirrors again. The road behind me stayed empty, but somehow that didn't make me feel better. So Rule 4, Bentley. Something starts following you that doesn't look right. You don't stop. You speed up and you keep driving until you reach people and lights. Dad's voice came through the headset, steady and certain. Had to hit 90 before that thing finally gave up the chase. 90. I'd never pushed my rig that hard on this stretch of highway. The speed limit was 80, and even that felt risky with a full load in winter conditions. The cruiser just vanished, Dad continued. 1 second it was there in my mirrors, next second nothing, like it never existed at all. I checked my speedometer, 72 miles per hour. The truck handled smooth at this speed, but the thought of pushing it to 90 made my hands tighten on the wheel. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. Dad was quiet for a moment. I could hear him breathing through the connection, that familiar pause he always took before saying something important. "Because you're in it now, son. The heart of it." "The heart of what?" "That stretch between Rock Springs and Rawlins. Most of the incidents happen there. You've got about 40 miles of it ahead of you." I glanced at my GPS. He was right. The little blue line showed Interstate 80 cutting straight through empty country with Rawlins still 38 miles away. Nothing but darkness on both sides of the highway. "Dad, I know how it sounds," he said, "but I've been driving this route for 30 years. I've talked to other drivers. We compare notes at truck stops, share stories over coffee. This isn't just me, Bentley. This is real." The conviction in his voice stopped my argument cold. Dad wasn't the type to make things up. He'd taught me to check my load securely, to inspect my tires before every trip, to keep my logbook accurate down to the minute, everything practical, everything by the book. "The rules I gave you," Dad said. "They're not suggestions. You follow them exactly, no exceptions." "I understand." "Do you? Because when you're out there alone and something starts walking toward your truck, you're going to want to help. That's human nature. But you can't. You keep driving." I thought about the woman in the blue dress, standing in a blizzard without shivering. The driver who seemed to move further away the closer Dad got to him. The voices whispering through a turned-off radio. "What if I don't see anything?" I asked. "What if nothing happens? Then you call me from Green River and tell me you had a boring drive. That's the best possible outcome." A semi passed me going the other direction, its headlights sweeping across my windshield for a brief second. Then the darkness closed in again. No other traffic visible in either direction. "How long have you known about this?" I asked. "The incidents?" "Started hearing stories maybe 20 years ago. Didn't believe them at first. Thought drivers were just tired, seeing things. Then I had my first encounter. The hitchhiker, Sarah. That was the first, but not the last." Dad's voice got quieter. "There were others, Bentley. Things I didn't tell you about. Things I'm not going to tell you about tonight." That sent a chill through me. If Dad was holding back stories, they had to be worse than what he'd already shared. "The important thing is you know the rules now," he said. "You follow them, you'll be fine." Most drivers who have problems, they don't know what they're dealing with. They stop when they should keep going. They get out when they should stay in. And the ones who do know, they drive through without incident. The rules work, son. They've kept me safe for 15 years. I checked my mirrors again. Empty road behind me, empty road ahead. Just the steady rhythm of my diesel engine and the hum of tires on asphalt. "You still there?" Dad asked. "Yeah, I'm here." "Good. Now listen, you keep driving. Don't stop for anything between now and Green River. You see something that doesn't look right, you remember the rules, and you call me when you reach the truck stop. What if I can't reach you? You'll reach me. I'll be waiting." The GPS showed 36 miles to Rawlins. From there, it was another 24 miles to Green River. An hour of driving, maybe a little more. "Dad? Yeah? Thanks for the warning. That's what fathers do. They prepare their sons for what's coming." The line went quiet for a moment. I could hear the faint static of the connection, the background noise of Dad's house. "I love you, Bentley. Drive safe." "Love you too, Dad." The connection ended with a soft click. The headset went silent, except for the ambient noise of my truck. Diesel engine rumbling steady at 1800 RPMs. Wind whistling around the cab. The soft hiss of air brakes maintaining pressure. I was alone now. I tried to focus on normal things, checked my gauges, oil pressure good, coolant temperature normal, air pressure holding steady. The load felt secure behind me. No shifting or settling. Everything running smooth. But Dad's voice kept echoing in my head. The absolute certainty when he talked about the woman who'd drowned 3 days before he picked her up. The way his tone changed when he described the trucker who seemed to move further away. The fear I'd heard when he talked about the police cruiser with no one inside. This was paranoid thinking. Had to be. Drivers got tired on long hauls, started seeing things that weren't there. The mind played tricks in the darkness, especially on empty highways. Dad had probably dozed off for a second and dreamed about picking up a hitchhiker. The newspaper story was just coincidence, but even as I told myself that, I couldn't shake the conviction in Dad's voice. He'd sounded completely certain. Not like someone recounting dreams or hallucinations, like someone reporting facts. I turned up the heat a notch. The cab felt colder somehow, though the temperature gauge still read normal. Outside, the Wyoming landscape rolled past in darkness. No lights except my own headlights cutting through the night. 20 minutes passed. I kept checking the time on my dashboard display, watching the miles tick down on the GPS. 32 miles to Rawlins, 31, 30. The road stayed empty. No other traffic in either direction. Just me and 40,000 pounds of electronics pushing through the darkness at 72 miles per hour. Then I saw them. Headlights in my rearview mirror. At first, just a faint glow, maybe a mile back. I'd been checking my mirrors regularly since Dad's call, and the road had been completely empty. Now something was there. I watched the lights in my side mirror. They were getting brighter, which meant the vehicle was gaining ground, coming up fast. Probably another trucker running behind schedule, or someone who'd stopped for fuel and was making up time. Nothing unusual about that. But as the lights grew closer, something felt wrong. The headlights were too bright. Not the normal white or slightly yellow glow of regular headlights, but an intense, almost blue-white glare that hurt to look at in the mirror. And they were perfectly steady. No bounce or sway like you'd expect from a vehicle traveling at highway speed. I adjusted my rearview mirror to reduce the glare. The vehicle was maybe half a mile back now, closing the distance fast. Had to be doing at least 90 to gain ground that quickly. As it got closer, I could make out more details. Dark-colored vehicle, low profile. Definitely not a truck. And there was something on the roof, a light bar. Police cruiser. My first thought was relief. Just a cop running code to some emergency. He'd pass me and disappear ahead, probably wouldn't even notice my speed. But as the cruiser drew closer, I could see it more clearly in my mirrors. The vehicle was completely black. Not dark blue or dark gray like most police cars, but flat black. And while it had a light bar on the roof, the lights weren't flashing the normal red and blue pattern. They were flashing white, pure white, strobing in a rhythm that seemed wrong somehow. I couldn't see any department markings on the doors. No shield logo, no text, nothing. Just solid black paint. The cruiser was maybe 200 yards behind me now, maintaining a steady distance. Not trying to pass, not signaling for me to pull over. Just following. I thought about Dad's fourth rule. Something starts following you that doesn't look right, you don't stop. You speed up and keep driving until you reach people and lights. But this was a police car. Had to be. What else could it be? I squinted at my side mirror, trying to see through the windshield of the cruiser. The headlights were too bright, creating too much glare. I couldn't make out anyone inside. The cruiser's lights started flashing faster. The white strobes reflected off my mirrors and filled my cab with harsh, pulsing light. Still no red and blue. Just that intense white glare. Then the cruiser moved into the left lane. It was going to pass me. I felt my shoulders relax slightly. Just a cop in a hurry like I'd thought. He'd go around and disappear ahead. But instead of accelerating past, the cruiser pulled alongside my cab and matched my speed exactly. 72 miles per hour, holding steady in the left lane. I glanced down at the car through my driver's side window. No license plate on the front bumper. The windshield was tinted so dark I couldn't see inside at all. And up close I could see that the vehicle had no department markings anywhere. No numbers, no badges, no city or county identification. Just flat black paint and that strobing light bar. The cruiser stayed beside me for maybe 30 seconds. Then it dropped back into the right lane behind me, maintaining the same distance as before. My mouth felt dry. I reached for my water bottle and took a sip, trying to stay calm. This was probably nothing. Some kind of unmarked unit, maybe federal, or a detective's car with temporary emergency lights. There had to be a logical explanation. But Dad's voice kept echoing in my head. Black police cruiser with a light bar but no markings. Abnormally bright headlights that hurt to look at in mirrors. I checked my speedometer. Still 72. Maybe I should speed up a little, see what the cruiser did. I pressed the accelerator and watched my speed climb to 75. The cruiser maintained the same distance behind me. 78 miles per hour. The cruiser stayed with me, matching my speed perfectly. I pushed it to 80. The legal limit on this stretch, though I rarely drove that fast with a full load. The truck handled it fine, but I could feel the weight behind me, 40,000 pounds of momentum that would take a long time to stop if something went wrong. The cruiser maintained its position. Same distance, same lane. Like it was connected to my truck by an invisible rope. My CB radio crackled. I looked down at it. The power switch was off. Had been off since I'd started this trip, just like always. But the display was lit up, showing Channel 19. Static filled the cab, then cleared. A voice came through the speaker. Need assistance on Interstate 80. The voice was faint, distorted. Could have been male or female. Hard to tell with the static. Vehicle disabled eastbound, mile marker 207. I glanced at the mile markers flashing past in my headlights. I was at mile marker 212. 207 was 5 miles behind me. Please respond. Need assistance. The voice repeated the same message, exact same words, same inflection, like a recording playing on loop. I reached down and switched the CB to the off position. The display went dark, but the voice continued. Need assistance on Interstate 80. Vehicle disabled eastbound, mile marker 207. My hands were starting to sweat. I wiped them on my jeans and gripped the steering wheel tighter. The cruiser's headlights flashed once in my mirrors, bright white strobes that filled the cab for a split second, then went back to the steady glare. Please respond. Need assistance. I turned the CB's volume knob all the way down. The voice got quieter, but didn't stop. Even with the radio supposedly off and the volume at 0, I could still hear it whispering through the speaker. Vehicle disabled eastbound, mile marker 207. Please respond. This was exactly what Dad had described. The voices coming through a turned-off radio. The police cruiser with no markings. The headlights that were too bright to look at. I checked my speed. 80 miles per hour. Dad had said he'd reached 90 before the cruiser gave up. I pressed the accelerator harder. 82. 85. The truck's engine worked harder, RPMs climbing. I could feel the load shifting slightly as we picked up speed, the trailer swaying just a bit more than usual. The cruiser stayed with me. Perfect distance, perfect positioning. 88 miles per hour. I was pushing the truck harder than I'd ever pushed it on this highway. The steering felt less stable at this speed, requiring constant small corrections to stay centered in the lane. Need assistance on Interstate 80. The voice from the CB was getting louder despite the volume being turned down. And now there were other voices mixed in with it. Whispers I couldn't quite make out, overlapping and fading in and out of the static. 90 miles per hour. The truck was shaking now. Not violently, but enough that I could feel it in the steering wheel and seat. 40,000 pounds wasn't meant to move this fast, especially not on a highway with winter crosswinds. I checked my mirrors. The cruiser was still there, but something had changed. The headlights seemed dimmer somehow, not as painful to look at. And the vehicle itself looked less solid, like I was seeing it through heat shimmer. 92 miles per hour. The whispers from the CB were getting fainter. I could still hear them, but they sounded more distant, like voices calling from the bottom of a well. 95. The cruiser's headlights flickered. Not the deliberate strobing from before, but an unstable flicker like a fluorescent bulb about to burn out. I pushed the accelerator to the floor. The engine roared, RPMs climbing toward the red line. 98 miles per hour. 99. 100. I looked in my rearview mirror. The road behind me was empty. I kept the speedometer at 100 for another 30 seconds, watching the empty road stretch ahead in my headlights. The engine was screaming, RPMs buried in the red, but I didn't want to slow down too fast. Dad had said 90 worked for him, but that didn't mean whatever had been following me was really gone. The CB radio stayed quiet. No voices, no static, just the hum of the turned-off channel. I reached over and switched it completely off, then back on. Nothing. Channel 19 showed clear. I eased off the accelerator. 95. 90. The truck stopped shaking as much, and I didn't have to fight the steering wheel to keep it straight. 85. The engine noise dropped back to normal levels. My hands were cramped from gripping the wheel. I flexed my fingers one at a time, keeping my eyes on the road. The headlights showed the same empty asphalt they'd been showing for the last hour. White lines, yellow center stripe, black road surface, nothing else. At 75 miles per hour, I felt like I could breathe again. The immediate danger was over. Whatever that thing had been, it was gone now. Dad's rule had worked. I checked my mirrors again, still empty. The darkness behind me looked normal now, not the thick, heavy black it had seemed when the cruiser was there. Just regular nighttime highway darkness. My GPS showed 22 miles to Rawlins. I'd covered more distance than I'd realized during the chase. The whole thing had probably lasted 15 minutes, but it felt like an hour. I thought about calling Dad back, but what would I tell him? That his stories were true? That his rules worked? He already knew that. And I wasn't sure I was ready to talk about what had just happened. Not yet. The heater was still running full blast. I turned it down a notch and cracked the window to let some fresh air in. The cold felt good against my face. 21 miles to Rawlins. I settled back into my normal driving rhythm. 72 miles per hour, checking mirrors every few seconds, watching the road ahead. But something felt different now. The empty highway didn't seem peaceful anymore. It seemed like it was waiting. That's when I saw headlights in my rearview mirror again. My stomach dropped. The lights were maybe a mile back, just tiny dots, but they were there. I watched them for 30 seconds, timing them against the mile markers. They were gaining. "Come on," I said out loud. "Give me a break." But as the lights got closer, I could see they weren't the same brilliant blue-white that had hurt to look at. These were normal yellowish headlights, regular car headlights, not those weird strobes. The vehicle pulled up behind me and I got a good look at it in my mirrors. It was a Wyoming highway patrol cruiser, an actual patrol car with proper markings, a normal light bar, and a visible license plate. I could even see the trooper behind the wheel. The relief was so strong I almost laughed. A real cop, a normal person doing a normal job on a normal night. The trooper followed me for about 5 miles, maintaining a steady distance. He wasn't trying to pull me over, just traveling the same direction. Probably heading back to Rawlins after a call. Normal police business. When he finally passed me, he gave a little wave. I waved back. The patrol car disappeared ahead, red taillights shrinking to nothing. 15 miles to Rawlins. I was starting to think the worst was over when the cold hit. It didn't come gradually. 1 second the cab was comfortable, the next second I could see my breath. The temperature gauge on my dashboard still showed the heater running, but it felt like someone had opened a freezer door. My breath fogged in front of my face. I turned the heater up full blast, but the cold kept getting worse. Frost started forming on the inside of my windshield, thin white lines spreading across the glass. I hit the defroster and cranked the fan to maximum. The frost cleared in patches, but it kept coming back. I'd never seen anything like it. The outside temperature was only 28 degrees, cold but not Arctic, and my heater was working fine. That's when the radio started up again. Static first, low and steady. I looked down at the CB. It was still turned off, but the display was lit up and showing channel 19. The volume knob was at 0, but I could hear the static anyway. The whispers came next. Soft at first, just underneath the static. I couldn't make out words, but there were definitely voices. Multiple voices, all talking at once. I reached for the radio to turn it completely off, but my hand stopped halfway there. The voices were getting clearer, and I thought I heard something familiar. Bentley. My name. Clear as anything. A woman's voice, soft and sad. "Bentley, please." I jerked my hand back from the radio. The frost on my windshield was getting thicker despite the defroster running full blast. I had to lean forward to see through the clear patches. "Help us, Bentley." More voices joined in. Men, women, even what sounded like children, all saying my name, all asking for help. The static got louder, but the voices cut through it. I checked my mirrors. Empty road behind me, but that didn't mean anything. The first cruiser had appeared out of nowhere, too. The speedometer read 72. I pressed the accelerator and watched it climb. 75, 80. The voices got more urgent. "Bentley, don't leave us. We need you. Please stop." 85 miles per hour. The frost on my windshield started melting, but the cold in the cab got worse. I could barely feel my fingers on the steering wheel. 90 miles per hour. The voices were shouting now, overlapping each other, all saying my name. The static was so loud it hurt my ears, but I couldn't reach for the volume knob. Every time I tried to move my right hand, the truck started to drift. That's when I saw the headlights behind me. Not the normal yellow headlights of the highway patrol car. The brilliant blue-white strobes that made my mirrors useless. The black cruiser was back, maybe 200 yards behind me, matching my speed exactly, 95 miles per hour. The voices on the radio were screaming now, a wall of sound that filled the cab. My name, over and over, mixed with pleas for help and words I couldn't understand. The cruiser moved into the left lane and started pulling alongside me. I could see it in my peripheral vision, a black shape with those blazing headlights. But when I tried to look directly at it, my eyes wouldn't focus. It It was like trying to look at the sun. 100 miles per hour. The truck was shaking again, the steering wheel fighting in my hands. The engine was screaming, but the cold in the cab was so intense I couldn't feel my feet on the pedals. The cruiser was right beside my cab now, keeping perfect pace. The radio voices reached a crescendo, all screaming my name at once, and then suddenly cut off. Complete silence, except for the roar of my engine. I looked to my left. The cruiser's passenger window was down, and someone was looking back at me. It was a woman in a white dress. Her skin was pale as paper, her hair was soaking wet, and her eyes were completely black. No whites, no pupils, just solid black. She smiled at me, and her teeth were too sharp. She mouthed something. I couldn't hear her over the engine noise, but I could read her lips. Pull over. I floored the accelerator. 105 miles per hour. 110. The truck felt like it was going to shake apart, but I kept pushing it. The woman in the cruiser kept smiling, kept mouthing the same words. Pull over, Bentley. The speedometer hit 115. I'd never driven this fast in my life, especially not with a full load. The truck was bucking and weaving, and I had to use both hands to keep it on the road. The cruiser started falling back. The woman's smile faded, and she pressed her pale hand against the window. The glass cracked under her touch, spiderweb fractures spreading across the surface. 120 miles per hour. The cruiser was 50 yards behind now, then 100. The woman in the white dress was still visible in the passenger seat, but she was getting smaller. I held that speed for another mile, watching the cruiser disappear in my mirrors. When I was sure it was gone, I started slowing down. 110, 100, 90. The cold in the cab began to fade. I could feel my fingers again, and the frost on my windshield melted away completely. The radio stayed silent. At 80 miles per hour, I felt safe enough to check my GPS. 8 miles to Rawlins. I'd covered a lot of ground during that chase. I slowed to 75, then 72, my normal speed. The truck settled back into its regular rhythm, and the engine noise dropped to normal levels. But I kept checking my mirrors every few seconds, and I kept the speedometer right at 72, ready to floor it again if I saw those blue-white headlights. 6 miles to Rawlins. 5 miles. 4. The radio crackled to life one more time. Not voices this time, just static. Then a single word, clear and distinct. Soon. The static cut off and the radio went dark. 3 miles to Rawlins. I could see lights ahead now, the glow of the town against the night sky. Street lights, house lights, the bright fluorescent glare of gas stations, normal lights from normal places where normal people lived normal lives. 2 miles. The first buildings appeared alongside the highway. A truck stop, a McDonald's, a motel, all lit up and welcoming. 1 mile. I was going to make it to Rawlins. The worst stretch was behind me. That's when I saw her. She stood on the right shoulder about a quarter mile ahead, perfectly still in the beam of my headlights. A woman in a white dress, exactly like the one I'd seen in the cruiser. But this one was standing on the road, waiting. Her dress was soaking wet despite the clear night. Her long dark hair hung in dripping strands around her face. And even from a quarter mile away, I could see her eyes, completely black, like holes cut in her face. She wasn't moving, wasn't waving for help. She was just standing there, watching my truck approach, waiting. I should have slowed down. Every instinct screamed at me to hit the brakes, to stop, to see if she needed help. The woman stood there in that soaking white dress, her black eyes fixed on my truck, and something deep in my chest pulled me toward her. But Dad's voice cut through the impulse like a knife. Rule 3. Stay in the truck no matter what you see outside. Keep the doors locked and keep driving. I pressed harder on the accelerator instead. The speedometer climbed past 80. The woman grew larger in my windshield, her pale face becoming clearer in my headlights. Water dripped from her dark hair in steady streams, pooling at her feet on the asphalt. She didn't move, didn't wave, didn't even blink. Just watched my truck approach with those hollow black eyes. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. Don't look at her directly. Don't slow down. Don't stop. The truck shuddered as I pushed it to 85. The engine noise grew louder, more strained. 40,000 pounds wasn't meant to move this fast, but I couldn't let up. Not now. She was maybe 100 yards ahead now. Close enough that I could see her dress wasn't just wet. It was torn at the bottom, shredded like something had dragged her through rocks. Close enough to see that her skin had a bluish tint, like she'd been in cold water too long. The CB radio crackled behind me. More whispers, but I couldn't make out the words over the engine noise and my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. 50 yards. I could see her mouth now, slightly open, lips the same blue-white as her skin. She turned her head to track my approach, moving with the slow, deliberate motion of someone underwater. 20 yards. Don't look. Don't look directly at her. But I couldn't help it. For just a split second, my eyes flicked from the road to her face. She smiled. It wasn't a human smile. Too wide, stretching her face in ways that didn't look right. And her teeth. Christ, her teeth were sharp. Pointed like a shark's, gleaming wet in my headlights. I yanked my eyes back to the road and punched the accelerator to the floor. The truck lurched forward, engine screaming as the RPMs shot into the red zone. 90 miles per hour, 95. The whole cab shook like it was coming apart. I passed her in a blur of white dress and black eyes, close enough that I should have felt the impact if she'd stepped into the road. But there was nothing. No thud, no scream. No sound except my engine and the whispers from the radio. In my peripheral vision, because I couldn't stop myself from checking, I saw her turn. Her whole body pivoted to follow my truck, moving in that same slow underwater way. She watched me drive away, still smiling that terrible smile. The speedometer hit 100. The truck felt like it was going to shake itself to pieces, but I didn't let up. Behind me, those brilliant blue-white headlights were falling back. The cruiser couldn't keep up anymore, or didn't want to. I checked my rearview mirror. The woman was still visible in the distance, a small white figure standing in the middle of the road. She hadn't moved from her spot, just turned to watch me go. The radio whispers grew louder, more urgent. Multiple voices now, all talking at once. I caught fragments. My name, pleas for help, something about being cold, so cold. 105 miles per hour. The engine sounded like it was going to explode, but the whispers were getting fainter. The headlights behind me flickered, growing dim and unstable. At 95, the voices cut off completely, just like that, mid-sentence, mid-scream, silence. The temperature in my cab started climbing back to normal. The frost on my windshield melted away in seconds, leaving clear glass. I could feel warmth from the heater again, could move my fingers without pain. I checked my mirrors one more time. Empty road, no headlights, no woman in white, nothing but darkness and asphalt stretching behind me. But I kept my speed up anyway. 90, 85. Still way too fast for a loaded truck, but I wasn't taking any chances. My hands were shaking so bad I had trouble keeping the wheel steady. Sweat soaked through my flannel shirt despite the cold I'd just been through. The GPS showed 22 miles to Green River. 22 miles to safety, to lights and other people and normal things that made sense. I maintained 80 miles per hour for the next 10 miles, checking my mirrors every few seconds. The road stayed empty. No pursuing headlights, no voices on the radio, no women in white dresses. Just me and the highway, and the steady hum of my engine. At the 15-mile mark, I finally started to slow down. 75, then 70, then back to the legal limit. My truck settled into its normal rhythm, the shaking stopped, and the engine noise dropped to its usual rumble. but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I flexed my fingers one at a time, trying to work the tension out, but they kept trembling on the steering wheel. My shirt was soaked through with sweat, sticking to my back and chest. The taste of adrenaline sat bitter in my mouth. I thought about what I'd seen. The woman's face, those black eyes, that smile. The way she'd moved, like she was underwater. The torn dress, the blue-white skin, the sharp teeth. Dad's story about Sarah came back to me. The woman who'd drowned, who'd been found dead the morning before he picked her up. Had that been her? Was she still out there, still trying to get rides from truckers on this stretch of highway? Or was it someone else? Something else? The green highway sign appeared in my headlights like a gift from God. Green River 30 miles. 30 miles to the truck stop Dad had mentioned. 30 miles to other drivers, to lights, to normal human beings who didn't have black eyes and shark teeth. 30 miles to safety. I settled back in my seat and tried to steady my breathing, in through the nose, out through the mouth, just like Dad had taught me when I was a kid and got scared during thunderstorms. Count to 10. Breathe slow. Think about normal things. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face. That smile. Those teeth. My phone rang, the sound cutting through the cab like a gunshot. I nearly jumped out of my skin, my heart slamming against my ribs. The caller ID showed Dad's number. I hit the answer button so fast I almost dropped the phone. "Bentley?" His voice filled the cab through the Bluetooth, rough and worried. "You still there, son?" "Yeah, Dad, I'm still here." My voice came out rougher than I expected. I cleared my throat and tried again. "I'm okay." The silence stretched for a few seconds. I could hear him breathing through the Bluetooth, that familiar sound that meant he was thinking hard about something. "What happened out there, son?" His voice was careful, like he already knew the answer would be bad. "Tell me everything." I kept my eyes on the road ahead. The highway stretched empty in both directions, normal asphalt under normal streetlights. Hard to believe what I'd just driven through. "There was a cruiser," I said. "Black one, no markings, followed me for miles." "How fast did you go?" "Hit 100, maybe 105. I flexed my fingers on the steering wheel. They'd finally stopped shaking. Just like you said. When I got fast enough, it disappeared." "Good. What else?" I told him about the CB radio turning itself on, about the voices whispering my name, about the cold that came out of nowhere and the frost on my windshield. Dad didn't interrupt, didn't ask questions, just listened. When I got to the part about the woman in the white dress, I had to stop for a second. The memory hit me fresh. Those black eyes, that smile. "She was standing right in the middle of the highway," I said, "soaking wet like she'd just climbed out of a river. Her dress was torn up, and her eyes..." I shook my head. "They were completely black, Dad. No whites at all." "You didn't stop." It wasn't a question. He said it flat like he already knew. "No, I remembered what you told me. Stay in the truck, keep driving," so I floored it and went around her. "Good boy." The relief in his voice was clear. "That's my son. You did exactly right." I passed a road sign that said Green River was 15 miles ahead. Almost there. Almost safe. But what was she, Dad? What were any of those things? I kept my voice steady, but inside I was still trying to make sense of what I'd seen. That wasn't normal. None of it was normal. Dad was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice sounded tired. Old. "I don't know, Bentley. I've been driving this route for 30 years and I still don't know. Don't want to know if I'm being honest. But you must have some idea. You've got rules for all of it. You knew exactly what would happen. The rules work because other drivers figured them out the hard way. Some of them didn't make it home to tell about it. We just know what works and what doesn't." I thought about that. Other drivers who didn't make it home. How many people have you lost out here? Too many. His voice got even quieter. Good drivers. Experienced guys who thought they could handle anything. This stretch doesn't care how long you've been behind the wheel. The GPS showed 12 miles to Green River. I could see a faint glow on the horizon ahead. Civilization. So, what is it about this place? I asked. Why here? Why this stretch of highway? Dad made a sound that might have been a laugh, but there wasn't any humor in it. Hell if I know. Some places are just wrong, son. Maybe something happened here a long time ago. Maybe it's the land itself. Maybe it's something else entirely. He paused. The important thing is, you know how to survive it now. Will it happen again? Next time I drive through? Probably. Not every time, but enough. You'll learn to read the signs. When the air gets too quiet. When your radio starts acting up. When the temperature drops for no reason. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Made sense. I'd noticed the cold first, then the radio. Maybe next time I'd be ready sooner. The woman in the white dress, I said. Was that Sarah, the one from your story? Could be. Could be someone else entirely. There's more than one of them out there. More than one. That thought settled in my stomach like a rock. Dad? How do you keep doing this route? Knowing what's out here? Because it's my job. And because now it's your job too. Someone's got to move freight through Wyoming, and it might as well be us. We know the rules. We know how to stay alive. The glow on the horizon was getting brighter. I could make out individual lights now. Street lamps. Maybe a gas station or two. Besides, Dad continued, most nights are normal, boring even. It's just that when things go wrong out here, they go really wrong. How often does it happen? Hard to say. Maybe one trip in 10, maybe one in 20. Depends on the weather, time of year, who knows what else. Winter's worse, storm nights are the worst of all. I thought about the woman standing in the road, the way she'd turned to watch my truck pass, like she was memorizing it. Will she remember me next time I come through? Dad was quiet for so long I thought the call had dropped. Then he cleared his throat. I don't know, son. I hope not. The Green River exit was coming up. I could see the truck stop Dad had mentioned, bright fluorescent lights and a parking lot full of big rigs. Normal trucks driven by normal people who probably thought the worst thing on the highway was black ice or a blown tire. I'm almost to Green River, I said. Good. Pull in, get some coffee, walk around for a few minutes. Let yourself remember what normal feels like. I took the exit and rolled into the truck stop parking lot. Other drivers were walking between their trucks in the building. A few were checking their loads or doing pre-trip inspections. Everything looked exactly like it should. I'm here, I said, safe and sound. You did good tonight, Bentley, real good. Most people wouldn't have followed the rules. They'd have stopped to help or pulled over for that cruiser or gotten out to see what was wrong. You stayed smart. I parked between two other trucks and set the brake. The familiar hiss of the air brakes sounded like the most normal thing in the world. Will you tell me more stories sometime? About what else is out there? Maybe. When you're ready. Tonight was enough for now. I looked at the clock on my dashboard. 4:37 in the morning. I'd been driving for almost 14 hours, but I felt wide awake. I should get some rest, I said. Still got 4 hours to Seattle. Get your coffee first. Walk around, talk to some other drivers. You need to be around normal people for a while. Okay, Dad. Thanks for everything tonight. For the rules. For staying on the phone. That's what family's for, son. You call me when you get to Seattle, you hear? I will. And Bentley, I'm proud of you. Takes guts to do what you did tonight. The call ended and I sat in my cab for a minute, listening to the engine tick as it cooled. Around me, the truck stop hummed with normal activity. Diesel engines idling, air brakes hissing, drivers talking about delivery schedules and road conditions. I climbed down from the cab and walked toward the building. My legs felt shaky, like I'd been running instead of sitting behind a wheel. The cold Wyoming air hit my face, but it was regular cold. Winter cold. Not the impossible bone-deep freeze I'd felt on the highway. Inside, the truck stop was bright and warm. Coffee brewing, hot food under heat lamps, drivers reading newspapers or checking their phones. I bought a large coffee and a sandwich I didn't really want, then found a table near the window where I could see my truck. An older driver at the next table looked up from his logbook. "You okay, son? You look like you've seen a ghost." I almost laughed at that. If only he knew. "Long night," I said. "Still got a ways to go." "I hear that. Where you headed?" "Seattle." "Nice run. Good money on that route." He went back to his paperwork. I sipped my coffee and watched the parking lot through the window. Everything looked normal. Just trucks and drivers, and the business of moving freight across the country. But now I knew there was something else out there. Something that waited in the dark between the safe places. My phone buzzed with a text from Dad. "Remember, what happened tonight stays between us. Other people wouldn't understand." I typed back, "Got it." He was right. How could I explain what I'd seen to someone who hadn't been there? They'd think I was hallucinating from too much caffeine and not enough sleep. Hell, part of me still wanted to believe that's all it was. But I knew better now. I'd felt that cold, heard those voices, seen those black eyes and that impossible smile. I finished my coffee and walked back to my truck. The sun was starting to come up, painting the eastern sky in shades of pink and orange. In daylight, the highway looked normal again, just asphalt and painted lines and the occasional car heading to work or wherever people went at dawn. I climbed back into my cab and started the engine. The familiar rumble was comforting. This was my world. The truck, the road, the job of getting cargo from point A to point B. Everything else was just something to survive. The GPS showed 3 hours and 42 minutes to Seattle. I pulled out of the truck stop and merged back onto Interstate 80, heading west toward Utah. In my mirrors, Wyoming fell away behind me, looking peaceful and ordinary in the morning light. But I knew I'd be back. This was my route now, and there was freight to move. Next time, I'd be ready. I knew the rules. I knew what to watch for. And I knew that sometimes the most important thing wasn't understanding what you were up against. Sometimes it was just staying alive long enough to drive away from it. The highway stretched ahead, empty and normal. I settled into my driving rhythm and tried not to think about what would be waiting for me the next time I drove through Wyoming in the dark. Miles passed. The sun climbed higher, burning off the last of the night. By the time I crossed into Utah, the terror of the past few hours felt distant, almost dreamlike. But I knew the memory would stick. Those whispers saying my name, the impossible cold, the woman in white standing in the road with her black eyes and sharp teeth. I'd carry those memories with me forever. They'd make me a better driver, a more careful one. They'd keep me alive on future runs through that stretch of highway where normal rules didn't apply. My phone rang through the Bluetooth. Dad's number again. "Hey," I said. "Just wanted to check on you one more time. How you feeling?" "Better. Tired, but better. The sun helps. It always does. Daylight makes everything seem normal again. Will I ever get used to it? To knowing what's out there?" You learn to live with it. Focus on the job, follow the rules, and remember that most of the time the highway is just a highway. I nodded and adjusted my grip on the steering wheel. "Thanks, Dad, for everything. Drive safe, son. Call me from Seattle." I pulled into the passing lane to get around a slow-moving RV. The morning traffic was picking up as I got closer to Salt Lake City. My phone buzzed with Dad's ringtone again. "Yeah, Dad?" Just wanted to make sure you're still doing okay out there." "I'm good. Better, actually. The sun's helping. It always does. Daylight has a way of making everything seem manageable again." I checked my mirrors and moved back into the right lane. The RV driver gave me a wave as I passed. Normal stuff. Regular people doing regular things. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Of course you can. How many other drivers know about this? About what happens on that stretch?" He was quiet for a minute. I could hear the TV in the background at his house. Some morning news show. "More than you'd think. Less than there should be." "What do you mean?" "Well, the ones who've been driving long enough, who've done that route enough times, most of them have stories. Maybe not as clear as what happened to you, but they've seen things, felt things. Most of them just change routes after a while. They stop driving through Wyoming. The smart ones do. Take I-70 through Colorado instead, or go north through Montana. Adds time and miles, but some things are worth the detour." I shifted in my seat and adjusted my grip on the wheel. The Utah landscape rolled past my windows, all red rock and desert under the morning sun. Beautiful country, normal country, but you kept driving it. Had to. It's the fastest route from Denver to the West Coast. Time is money in this business, you know that. And besides, once you know the rules, once you really understand them, it's manageable. Scary as hell, but manageable. How long before it stops bothering you? It doesn't stop bothering you. You just learn to live with it, like knowing there are bears in the mountains or sharks in the ocean. They're there, they're dangerous. But if you're careful and you know what you're doing, you can coexist. I passed a sign for Salt Lake City, still had about 6 hours to Seattle. The familiar rhythm of the road was settling back into my bones. Mile markers, exit signs, other trucks, the normal world. "Dad," those voices on the radio. They knew my name. "Yeah, they do that." "How?" "I don't know, son. I've been thinking about that for 30 years and I still don't have an answer. Maybe they hear us talking. Maybe they know things we don't. Hell, maybe they're connected to the highway somehow, picking up information from truckers who didn't make it through." That thought made my stomach clench. You think some drivers don't make it? I know some don't. You hear stories at truck stops. Driver found dead in his cab, no explanation. Truck found empty on the side of the road, driver never seen again. Official reports always blame fatigue or medical events, but we know better. Jesus. That's why the rules matter, Bentley. That's why I needed to make sure you understood them. This isn't some campfire ghost story. This is life and death. I checked my fuel gauge. Still had 3/4 of a tank. Plenty to get to Salt Lake if I needed to stop. "Do you think Mom knew about what you dealt with out here?" Dad went quiet again. When he spoke, his voice was softer. "Your mother was a smart woman. She knew I had rough nights sometimes, knew there were trips that shook me up more than others, but I never told her the details. How could I? She would have worried herself sick every time I left for a run. Maybe she would have understood. Maybe. Or maybe she would have asked me to find a different job, and we couldn't afford that back then. Sometimes protecting the people you love means carrying the weight yourself." I thought about that as I passed another trucker heading east. Wondered if he knew about the Wyoming stretch. Wondered if he'd ever seen things that couldn't be explained. "Dad, what you went through last night, what I went through, do you think it's getting worse?" "Hard to say. Could be more drivers on the road means more encounters. Could be whatever's out there is getting stronger or more active. Or could be we're just hearing about it more because of cell phones and the internet." "But you said conditions have been getting worse lately." "They have. More reports, more frequent sightings. Used to be you might go months between incidents. Now it's happening more often." "Why do you think that is?" "I don't know. Climate change, maybe. Development encroaching on wild places, or maybe it's something else entirely. Maybe whatever's out there feeds on fear or confusion, and there's plenty of both these days. A road sign indicated I was approaching the Salt Lake City metro area. Traffic was getting heavier. More cars, more trucks, more normal people going about their normal lives. None of them knowing what lurked on certain stretches of highway in the dark. Bentley, I need to ask you something. What's that? If you ever have a son someday, if you ever have kids who might end up driving these roads, will you teach them the rules? I hadn't expected that question. I looked ahead at the brightening sky, at the mountains rising in the distance. The sun was fully up now, painting everything in warm gold light. You want me to pass this on? I need you to. See, that's how this works. That's how it's always worked. One generation teaches the next. The knowledge gets handed down because it has to. Because if it doesn't, people die. How long has this been going on? Long as there have been roads through that country, I'd imagine. Maybe longer. My father told me some of the rules when I started driving. His father told him. Goes back generations. Your dad knew about this? He drove freight wagons through Wyoming before there were paved roads. Said the same things happened then. Different details, but the same basic pattern. Things that shouldn't be there. People who weren't quite people. The need to keep moving and not stop to help. I thought about my grandfather, who I'd barely known. He died when I was young. I remembered him as a quiet man who always seemed to be listening for something. So this is like a family tradition? It's bigger than family. It's a responsibility. Every driver who learns the rules and makes it through has an obligation to teach them to the next person who needs them. And you think I'll need to teach them someday? I hope not. I hope you find a different route or a different job before you have to worry about it. But if you don't, if you keep driving that stretch, then yeah. Someday you might meet a young driver who's about to make that run for the first time. And when you do, you'll need to share what you know. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. I understand. Do you promise me that if the time comes, you'll pass on the rules? I promise. Good. That's all I can ask. We drove in comfortable silence for a while. I watched the landscape change as I moved deeper into Utah. Desert gave way to more populated areas, exit signs for suburbs and shopping centers, the ordinary world reasserting itself. Dad? Yeah? Thank you for the rules, for calling me, for making sure I knew what I was getting into. I don't want to think about what would have happened if I'd been unprepared. You don't need to thank me. That's what fathers do. We prepare our kids for the dangers we know about. Most fathers don't have to worry about supernatural hitchhikers. He laughed, a sound I hadn't heard in our conversation until now. Most fathers don't have sons who drive trucks through haunted stretches of highway either. Is that what it is? Haunted? I don't know what else to call it. Something happened in that country. Maybe lots of somethings over the years, and whatever it was left a mark that won't fade. I thought about the woman in the white dress, about her black eyes and pointed teeth, about the way she'd smiled when she'd mouthed, "Pull over." Will I ever understand it? What those things actually are? Probably not. I've been thinking about it for 30 years, and I'm no closer to answers than I was the first time I saw Sarah. But understanding isn't the point. Survival is the point. Getting through alive is the point. And the rules work. The rules work. They were paid for with the lives of drivers who figured them out the hard way. Honor that by following them and teaching them when the time comes. Another sign flashed past. Salt Lake City, 15 miles. I was making good time. Would be in Seattle by early afternoon if traffic cooperated. I should probably let you get some rest, I said. You've been up all night worrying about me. I'm fine. But you're right, I should try to get some sleep. Call me when you get to Seattle. Let me know you made it safe. I will. And Bentley, what happened last night? What you saw and experienced, keep it to yourself. People who haven't been through it won't understand. They'll think you're crazy or making it up. I know. Drive safe, son. I love you. Love you too, Dad. The line went quiet. I touched the button on my steering wheel to end the call and settled back into my seat. The morning sun was warm on my face through the windshield. Traffic flowed around me in predictable patterns. Everything was normal and rational and explainable. But I knew I'd never be quite the same. I'd seen things that shouldn't exist. I'd felt the cold that came from somewhere other than winter air. I'd heard voices that belonged to people who might not be people at all. And someday, if Dad was right, I'd meet another driver who was about to face that stretch of highway for the first time. Someone young and confident and unprepared. And I'd have to find a way to explain the unexplainable. I'd have to convince them that the rules weren't suggestions, but requirements for survival. I'd have to become the voice of experience, the keeper of knowledge that sounded insane, but could save lives. The thought was both terrifying and strangely comforting. I wasn't alone in this. I was part of something bigger, older than I'd imagined. A chain of drivers stretching back generations, each one passing on hard-won wisdom to the next. My truck rolled steadily westward, carrying 40,000 pounds of electronics toward Seattle. But it was carrying something else now, too. The weight of knowledge, the responsibility of survival, the understanding that some things in this world couldn't be explained, only endured. And someday, when I met that young driver who reminded me of myself just 24 hours ago, I'd find the words to prepare them for what waited in the dark. I'd teach them the rules that had kept me alive. I'd make sure the knowledge didn't die with me. Because that's what you do when you've seen the impossible and lived to tell about it. You make sure the next person has a fighting chance.